Thank you so much for watching. What you see in front of me is literally the biggest RC news to hit the market in 2021. This is the all-new Axial SCX6. It's going to take a tiny bit of getting used to for me with that name, because I'm so used to saying SCX10, whether that be 1, 2 or 3. So to have to say SCX6 right now is a bit odd. This is a 1/6 scale trail truck, and it is absolutely phenomenal. You can see that there's some dirt on the tires. In this video, I will take you through the entire process of what I usually do, which is an unboxing, but I will also tell you how it drives. I've taken it out for a spin a couple of times already. I was completely baffled when this thing landed on my doorstep, because I really did not see this coming. Axial has done a great job in keeping this thing a secret. Also, I think in taking the entire market by surprise. This is hopefully a segment that will really take off. I'm a huge fan of larger scale trucks. If you look at the box is here, by the way. I'm not going to put it on the table just because it is too big. You will see a couple of close-ups of the box, just so you can see some of the features that this truck packs. For example, a 1200 kV motor, 120 amp ESC. This is a sensored combo, so it runs really smooth. A 2-speed gearbox. Those gears are pretty far apart, so it actually makes sense to have a 2-speed in this truck. A 15 kilo shifting servo, a 40 kilogram steering servo, a large sized servo, by the way. Aluminum bodied shocks, black Rhino licensed wheels, BFG tires. The list just goes on and on. Of course, this fantastic looking Jeep JLU body with a full interior, with a roll cage, lights. It is just a really complete package. Let's go over one thing at a time. So let's have a look at the radio first, which is a Spectrum DX3. This Spectrum DX3 radio is no stranger to most. I think a lot of people are familiar with this one. Looking at it next to the truck, it looks actually like a really tiny radio. It must look like I shrunk if you think that this is a regular SCX10 version 3 that you're looking at. This thing is so incredibly big, I just cannot get over it. I had it for a couple of days right now, but I'm still in complete shock and in complete awe of its size. Anyway, back to the radio. DX3 with the thumb steer. There's an indicator level over here for the battery. So in case you are running a Spectrum Smart Technology battery, you can see on the top of your radio how much battery you have left on the truck. You can also limit the throttle if you think that it's a great idea to give this to somebody who has really no experience, or to like a kid. You can tune it down to 75 or 50%. However, I do not recommend giving this to anybody under the age of 14, because ugly stuff will happen. This is 25 pounds of truck, or 11 point something kilos, and it's really a handful. Good radio, no complaints about it whatsoever. I also really like it in my other trucks, so I think they did a good job on including this. It takes 4 AA batteries, those are also included, which is nice. Comes with a sticker sheet if you want to finish up the look of your SCX6. Then over here there's a bunch of logos that you can stick on there. There's also, a lot of people don't know what these are for. I also had to look when I built my SCX10 version 3 Jeep JLU, the tiny one. But this is actually a sticker that you put on the taillight to make it look scale appropriate. So that's what that one is for. Also these little reflectors, these silver ones, these also go on the taillights. You will see some running footage of my truck without those stickers on, so because it looks a bit stupid, it's because I still have those stickers over here. I was just too giddy to get this out on the trails and have a look at it. Also comes with a really high quality manual, so full color cover on it, and it explains to you in a couple of different languages what to do to get the truck up and running in case you are completely new to the hobby perhaps. It also has a full parts list in the back, and that also sort of explains a lot already about what to expect technically from this truck. And there are a few significant differences from the SCX10 version 3 from the smaller brother. This SCX6 comes in 2 different colors. It comes in like kind of an olive military type of green. I'm not sure if it's a metallic or not. I do know that Matt at the Scale Builders Guild, he has the green one. So I might check with him what he actually thinks of the sheen on his color. I have this silver one, which I'm really happy with because I want to do some additional paint work just to make it stand out. The Lexan on it is really thick. If you are looking at, for example, what type of body accessories come with the truck, I refer you to what you already know, perhaps from an SCX10 version 3. So it has the injection molded hood vents, it has the wipers, it has the wing mirrors, door handles, a gas cap, hood latches, and then it has a full grille section with a radiator, headlight buckets, and also then in the back you will find there's a number plate holder, tail lights, and of course these fenders. That's also a really significant part of this body, not just for looks but also for practicality. I can tell that I've been rubbing these against the rocks quite a bit already, so these are pretty scuffed. Proportionally looks great. Also has that interior with the cowboy sitting in there, and I checked because I got a couple of head figures left from some of my other Axial rides, some of the discontinued Axial rides that I've had in the past, like for example the Yeti XL, and I'm pretty positive that that helmet will fit on there. So I might see if I can change out the looks of the interior as well, just to see if I can put my own little twist on it. So everything that you're used to perhaps seeing in a smaller scale, this huge one has it as well. It has the CRC licensed front and rear bumper. This is, I guess, the least innovative part at first glance of this all new truck, just because these are all parts that look familiar that have just been blown up and scaled up. Let's pull the body off and see what we have underneath. Just like its smaller brother, this body is a pain in the neck to get off. So you have the internal roll cage, you have the interior, you have the cowboy head, you have these fenders, and of course also these body mounts. Yeah, it is a heavy shell. LED lights are also included, but very well made. With it being so sturdy, it is a bit of a pain to get it off. So you need to kind of get the hang of that before you can routinely go ahead and easily pop it on and off to show off to your friends that you are a skilled RCer. Axial calls these, I'm not even going to bother to try to lift this truck up the entire time because I will have a hernia by the time we're done. Axial calls these axles, of which you now will see a close-up, the AR90s. You are perhaps familiar with the AR45s, which is the SCX10 version 3 straight axle kit. The SCX10 version 3 got, well, a tiny bit of criticism from some people that it had portal axles instead of a straight axle. They fixed that immediately with this SCX6 by putting in a straight axle. These straight axles, they have a ton of steering throw. They also have a ton of built-in strength. So there's a big truss that is molded into the axle housing, and also in the bottom you will see that there are some triangular reinforcements to make sure that you're not going to snap this thing on your first outing. When you give it a closer look, it is a high entrance ring and pinion gear. It is, however, way more subtle than you would find it in the SCX10 version 3 or even in the AR44 axles. Those high entrance pinion gears are way more pronounced in the way that they're helically cut. It does make things a tiny bit noisier perhaps at first, but once this thing is properly running, that will quickly disappear. Big bearings, of course, throughout the entire thing. The universals on this, they are huge. Link mounts are molded in, and you can also not adjust the angle of the C-hubs. I think all of that has to do with just keeping this truck as beefy as possible. I also do not see any reason to go mess around with any of those settings out of the box, because it is an excellent performing truck. Everything about this truck is over-engineered, it almost seems. But seeing that it weighs 25 pounds, it does need to have some sort of beefiness to withstand the abuse. Attached to those AR90 axles are some 20mm big bore shocks with 5mm shafts. These shocks are almost all aluminum, so there's an aluminum bottom cap, there's an aluminum shock body, there's an aluminum adjustment ring. There is, however, a plastic top cap with a bleeder screw in it, and also well, of course, your perch, that's also plastic because something has to give. Going back from those AR90 axles, you will find wild boar drive shafts. These are a completely new type of wild boar drive shafts. The name wild boar has been around for a really long time, and you have seen also a wild boar drive shaft, for example, in the Yeti XL, and of course also in my Yeti XXL. But this is a completely new type. So the coupler piece is more coarse than you would find it on the Yeti XL version. And also the diameter is slightly bigger. This is a 17mm diameter drive shaft with steel couplers and 3.5mm pins coupling it to the transmission and also to the axle. I'm so excited about this truck. This has been something that, this is just a tiny intermezzo of me praising what they've done here. But this is something that I've been looking forward to owning and to having and to seeing out on the trails for such an incredibly long time that my RC heart is really starting to beat faster when I see what they've done over here. They've basically taken everything that we have come to love and appreciate in 10 scale, blown it up to 6 scale, and the result of it you see in front of me right here. Anyway, let's continue on to look at more of this amazing SCX6. I threw it on its side just so we can have a look at the way that the suspension is set up. We have a 4-link in the back and we have a 3-link in the front. Supposedly that reduces some of the torque twist. It also reduces some bump steer. 3-link in the front of course means that you have a panhard. It also means that you have a steering link over here. All of these links are 10mm in diameter. They're all steel. If you're not familiar with the directional link, it means that the rod end on one end is screwed on counterclockwise and on the other end it is screwed on clockwise. You can leave these on the truck. You can just stick a tool in the center of the link, twist it whatever way you want to twist it if you want to adjust the length of those links. Also means that doing that out on the trails is a lot easier. The plastic on these rod ends feels really good. I have had this truck out for a bit right now and there's no additional slop. There's nothing that feels sloppier than that it felt when I took the truck out of the box. So I do see this holding up for a really long time, and also really noteworthy that doesn't just go for these links but also for the way that the shocks are mounted. There are full stainless steel pivot balls throughout this entire truck. So if you're not just into big stuff but you also like big shiny balls, this could definitely be the truck for you because there's plenty of shiny balls to admire, especially when you toss it on its side like this. The SCX6 also features some stamped steel C-channel frame rails that are split in the center. I triple dare you, when you come from Holland, try saying that without really slipping the tongue or having a complete aneurysm while doing so. I'm not sure why I split it in the middle. I'm thinking that a ton of different body options perhaps will come out where we will see this thing a bit shorter, a bit longer. I think we will see so many cool things happening with this new platform and with this new truck that it's just going to be a really exciting year ahead. CRC bumper in the front and in the back, really good looking. All of these wheel tubs also look nice and they really keep the crap out. There's 3 different, first glance when you open it you go like, whoa, there's a lot of room for different batteries. Is it like a 12S vehicle? No, it isn't. They recommend, and it says nowhere on the box, or at least nowhere where I've been able to see it, they recommend driving it on 3S Max. So if you want to go ahead and do 4S, do that at your own risk. I do not recommend doing that, so keep it at 3S Max. You will also see that in high speed, which we will get into a tiny bit later, but in high speed you will have more than enough nippiness on that on a 3S battery. So don't exceed that. But if you want to kind of mess around with seeing how you want to distribute the weight, or if you have a ton of spare batteries with you and you don't know what to do with them, and you just want to put them in the chassis somewhere, there are 3 different battery locations where you can do so. So if that's your cup of tea, you can't make up your mind, you're like, I'm not sure left, right, center today. There's left, right, center is all day long happening inside of this humongous chassis. The transmission case is absolutely massive, as is the motor that is coupled to it. This servo on the back is a 15 kilogram shifting servo. the SPM S614. You can see it over here. I'm looking at it a bit closer over there. Don't shift it going full speed. Also, don't shift it standing still. You will burn out the servo. That is something that I can guarantee you. All of the gears inside, of course, massive metal. Also, the motor plate is metal, and the motor is a 5684 1200 kV censored motor, 56 millimeters in diameter, 84 millimeters long. It's just insane. I've never seen anything of this kind being mounted in a vehicle of this sort. It's just a whole new era that we're entering, I feel. It is really putting the bar exceptionally high for anybody else who has even remotely a thought about entering this segment. The steering servo is 40 kilogram. They do say that you can run this one on 7 volts. They don't recommend it for the other one, but therefore also in the manual they go back to saying that they only recommend setting the BEC if you have the Spectrum program card. They only recommend setting the BEC at 6 volts and not at 7.4 volts. While technically perhaps the steering servo could handle a tiny bit more. Now, of course, when you take this faux engine off, you will see that underneath there's some more stuff tucked away, like for example a receiver, but also an ESC. The ESC in this is a 120 amp censored Spectrum ESC that is waterproof, and it has been doing its job really well. It is fairly quiet, it does hum a tiny bit, so it's really easy to dose it in the low speed gear, and it is really nippy and also quite fast in the high speed gear. You really need to like kind of hold off on the throttle to avoid having a terribly expensive accident, because I imagine that that body is not going to be cheap. Last part to cover in this brief overview of the Axial SCX6 before I tell you how it drives are the wheels and tires. These are fully licensed wheels and tires. The rims are licensed by Black Rhino. The outer diameter of this rim is 82 millimeters. The inner ring, so the ring that actually sits inside the tire, the diameter of that one is 19 millimeters. And the overall diameter of the tire, which is a BFG tire, so a BF Goodrich KM3 tire, a really, I think, popular thread pattern and a really known tire to most of us. This tire is 7 inches tall, which is of course crazy. We're talking about an entirely new segment, an entirely new size on absolutely everything, so that also goes for these wheels and tires. At first I was perhaps a bit apprehensive about the firmness of the foams. It is a single stage foam that sits inside these tires. So you see some tire ripple going on when you're out on the rocks and you get bound up a tiny bit, but nothing really crazy. I also think that the compound of these tires is pretty okay. It's not too hard. Already see that these tires are starting to wear nice and evenly. This is an internal bead lock, so it is screwed from the inside to the outside. 17 millimeter wheel hex. So I'm of course going to try what type of dump tires from monster trucks I can fit on here to make this truck look less scale, because it looks fantastic at the moment. Seeing that Axial now falls under the same flag as Proline as well, I have no doubt that there will be no shortage of different tires in different compounds, different tire inserts, stuff like that. This will just break open a whole new can of worms and a whole ton of options for us to have fun with in the years ahead. Putting the body back on really is not an easy feat. It is almost like going on a successful date. You really need to sort of like get your fingers in there and massage it a tiny bit in order to get the results that you want and call it a success. What is it like to drive the SCX6? It's a blast. It's also a task. You need to make sure that you have enough batteries with you. I think that's the most important thing. This is not a truck that you want to carry home when you're 2 miles from home. It weighs 25 pounds. For European people, that is 11.3 kilos, and that is without batteries. I think the 1200 kV motor and also the ESC has been an excellent choice. This is censored. It is really a buttery smooth setup. The 2-speed gearbox is pretty far apart, so you have a really slow low gear and you have a pretty fast high gear. The 2-speed in the tinier version was really close together. It almost is impossible to tell in which gear you actually are. And in this one, it's so far apart, you can immediately tell if you're in the high-speed gear or in the low-speed gear. I also think that that's important because you will rely on this truck to drive on its own a bit more than you perhaps would with a 10 scale. Meaning that a 10 scale, you can easily hook it to a backpack, hike it into wherever you need to go, and then let it do its thing. This thing weighing 25 pounds, you just want to put it on the ground the minute you leave your truck, your van, your Prius, your scooter, whatever you drive around in daily life. This Axial SCX6 adds an entire new dimension to trails that are known to you and to places that are known to you. You will look at them with a different set of eyes, and you will need to have a different set of eyes as well in order to tackle terrain that you are previously familiar with and that is right now completely new again and completely fresh again. I think that is the most important part of this truck. If you are starting to get perhaps a bit bored with your surroundings just because you have crawled or trailed through them so many times already, then having a completely new scale truck will just add a whole new dimension and shine a whole new light on an environment that you think you know. If you need to summarize this SCX6 out on the trails, it is almost like it defies the laws of physics. With that, I mean that it is such a behemoth of a vehicle, it has such a large footprint. It is so heavy that you would expect it to be perhaps a bit of a struggler out on the trails. It could not be further from the truth, actually. If you are familiar with an SCX10 version 3, even better. If you have the AR45 straight axles under your SCX3 JLU, then you will find that this SCX6 behaves almost identical, but of course it is larger. It is very predictable on what it does rolling back. It is very predictable on when you start tilting it one way or the other, and it is just really easy to power out of certain situations. You have plenty of power under your trigger finger with that 1200 kV motor and that 120 amp ESC. It is really an eye catcher. It is huge. People will wonder what the heck you're doing. Where in other situations with a 10 scale truck, you are being left alone because people just think that you're weird. People now they still think that you're weird, but you get a lot of curious looks. I have had more attention with this thing out on the trails than I have had with any of my other trail trucks. The only thing that I can compare this to is if I break out one of my big 1/5 scale gas cars. That's the type of attention that you get. People really get curious, and that means men, women, dogs, children, everybody wants to know more about it. So if you are starving for attention, get one of these. This beats any Tinder profile as well. If you want to have more information about the all-new Axial SCX6 and on where to purchase one, go check out the links in the video description box. I will make sure that there's a link to this silver one and also to the green one that you see on the box. If you do decide to purchase one, you will be able to make a homeless family really happy with the box because it's so big it can become a 4-bedroom apartment. If you want to stay up to speed with what I'm up to over here, hit the subscribe button, also hit the bell so you get a notification every time I release a new video. If you feel like I left anything out in this video, let me know in the comment section and I will try to get back to you. Any type of other feedback is also always more than welcome, so feel free to communicate with me over there. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button before you leave, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Take care, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you around. Bye-bye.
Back on.